Let's take a little bit of a break, just a little bit from the Phils to get some thoughts on the Eagles. But I'm sure Ross has some thoughts on the Phils too. I know his kids are fans. Ross is a fan, probably watching this thing last night like the rest of us and feeling like garbage. Ross Tucker with us here, of course, the host of the Ross Report, talking Eagles on social media at Ross Tucker. And Ross, how you doing today?
Not great, Joe. Not great. You know, I'm usually very upbeat and excited, but you know my kids are 12 and 13, and by far their three favorite teams are the Eagles, the Phillies, and Penn State. And so you have the Phillies lose Friday night.
Wow.
Penn State. And here's the thing. Every loss was like agonizing. You know, they're watching the end of the Penn State game, and Penn State looks like they're going to come back and actually win it, and then they blow it. And then Sunday, the Eagles look like they're going to win all the time, and then they lose. And then last night, you know, we're sitting there, and after the Castellanos hit, we were excited. They're jumping up and down, and he's on second. There's no outs. I'm feeling really pretty good about it. And I don't know. I don't pretend to be a big baseball guy. I really stopped playing after sixth grade. But I don't understand. I understand the thought process of the bunt there. Get the guy to third with one out, then you can get a sacrifice fly. I get that. But he's a lefty. You know, have some faith that he can put it in play or pull it to the right side. But can someone explain this to me? Even if all else fails and you're still going to have him bunt, doesn't it make more sense to bunt down the first baseline, or do you bunt to the third baseline because then the shortstop has to cover the base?
Yeah, I would think bunt towards the first baseline, especially Freddie Freeman, the Dodgers first baseman, Ross, a right-handed thrower. So, like, it's not like if he was a lefty, he could scoop and throw to third, but as a righty, he'd have to flip around to throw.
And it's a longer throw.
Yeah, of course. And then on top of it, Castellanos is the slowest runner on the team. So it's a foot race with him and Betts to third, and it's just, like, in theory, it could have been an okay idea, but based on the whole operation, it just was. It's funny you mentioned your kids, Ross. I thought I was having a good dad moment last time. My kids are 10 and 8, and they went to bed after the 8th. And then I'm watching, and the 9th starts playing out. And I'm like, I got to wake them up. I got to get them. Like, this is a moment. So I got them downstairs. I paused it when Castellanos hit the double, and I was like, all right, come on. And then we watched the meltdown together, and then they see me annoyed at Topper, on the couch there, like, what is this guy doing? And then they went back to bed all upset, and I felt bad because I woke them up for no reason. It was a rough night.
I have a quick question. Because I saw a clip of like Ruben Amaro and Michael Barkan like yelling.
Yeah, they were going after him a little bit.
So why couldn't they pinch run for Castellanos?
So
because they were talking about Bader was not available.
Yeah, so I think they could have, Ross. I understand Ruben's perspective because they were down outfielders because the next batter who they used to pinch hit, Bader, who got the hit, he couldn't run. He's hurt with a groin.
But you can't pinch run two guys?
Well, they only had one more outfielder left on the bench. That was Wilson, who they saved to run for Bader. But my thing there, Ross, is it's almost like in hockey when you pull the goalie. Like, it's desperation here. So they had a backup catcher on the bench they could have used because I'm not worried about an injury at that point. I'm just trying to get to extra innings or win the game. And, Ross, in the past, teams have used pitchers to pinch run. Like, you have a bunch of pitchers, like Christopher Sanchez, who started 2 nights ago. He's not doing anything. Like, there's been desperate moments where teams have used other guys just to run because they're caught. So I understood Ruben's perspective, but I think there were other ways around it if they got really creative.
Wow. Yeah. That was very, 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 very disappointing. It's almost better from a parent standpoint if they don't even have that rally in the 9th inning because it makes it so much worse, to your point, from like it gets your hopes up only to be crushed again.
I know. It really did. It was a tough one. All right, Ross. Well, this would be the portion of the program. At least we got an undefeated football team that never loses to talk about, but not this week. Ross, let's talk about what happened Sunday, and then we'll spin forward quickly to a short week with the Giants. Eagles dropped their first game, which on the surface, just a loss isn't the biggest thing in the world, especially in an AFC matchup. But Russ, what threw us yesterday and on Sunday was the way they went about offense in that game. We haven't seen a lopsided pass-run ratio around here like that in years. What do you think that was, and what did you make of the way they lost that game Sunday?
Well, so organizational philosophy has always been you throw to score, you run to win, right? So you throw early to get the lead, then in the second half, you kind of salted away, which I think is typically what they want to do. Obviously, I think there were a number of reasons why they wanted to get the passing game going early in this one. And I would say they kind of did. I mean, it wasn't on fire, but, they were getting the ball downfield. Devontae was making some plays. A.J. Brown, they were doing that. And even they had a couple that were very close and either got called back or he's out of bounds with Dotson and Devontae. The interesting part of it is that they throw the touchdown pass to Saquon, which, by the way, I would really try to throw the ball to him more. And I know there's only one ball and you can't throw it to everybody, but most coaches I talk to will tell you that's your best matchup. If you can get a running back that can run routes and catch passes against the linebacker, do that as much as you possibly can. I think last week kind of spooked them a little bit. Last week they had that lead on the Bucs. They tried to salt the game away. They tried to run it a bunch. They couldn't run it much. And, they got 0 passing yards, and they weren't really getting first downs. It was 3 and outs. So I think, Joe, they kind of decided, well, we're not doing that again. We're not just going to run the ball into a wall and not be able to we're going to stay aggressive. So I think that they thought they were doing the right thing by staying aggressive. But then what happened is they weren't converting and they weren't taking any time off the clock.
Yeah, and it allowed the Broncos. And Ross, I thought in the second half the Eagles' defense was gassed. They played over 70 snaps on Sunday in Tampa. Then they came home and played 70 snaps again. I thought Denver and Sean Payton kind of sensed it with the way they went about their offense and that 2-point conversion. I thought the Eagles' defense, because of what happened with the offense, they just were gassed at the end.
I think that's part of it. I also think it's funny because I was so close to posting in the third quarter, your quarterback's going to have to play a lot better than Bo Nix is to beat the Eagles. Because he was not good, I didn't think, for 3 quarters. All of a sudden in the fourth quarter, he was fantastic. I mean, he was awesome. Now, we all know that they got the benefit of at least 2, arguably 3 calls that kind of went their way. Although I don't know that I thought the one was offensive pass interference either. But if you're the Eagles, you gotta make your own breaks too. He made some nice throws to Cortland Sutton, but the Eagles really need, as good as he is, Quinyon Mitchell to force an incompletion on one of those. Even though Sutton's good, it's a perfect timing back shoulder throw. The 3rd and 15 was really killer. I mean, the 3rd and 15, that's the one that you really, at home, loud crowd, you should be able to get pressure and not give up a 3rd and 15 like that.
Ross, what did you make of the miss that Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown had and just the whole situation? I know there was a report last night, which is good, that A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, and Saquon Barkley sat down together yesterday and spoke for a while, which, that's obviously better than not. But that miss, that felt like a chance to end the game there. What did you make of that play? Was that Jalen holding on too long? Did A.J. really slow down too much? Because you watched the copy of it, it did feel like he stopped running on that route.
Well, first of all, I'm so thankful to hear that those guys talked for a couple hours. I don't know that anybody knows what's going on there, but they clearly, I know Hughes made comments about it or whatever, but, when A.J. first got here, all they talked about was how they were best friends and all that stuff. And obviously something happened, something changed that along the way, unfortunately. And they don't need to be best friends, but you definitely need to talk after a miss like that. I think what happened, Joe, is I think as A.J. Brown was running, Nick Bonito did a pretty good job of what's called rerouting him, right? So he got a nice shot on A.J., which made A.J. have to run around. And I think A.J. kind of thought the play was dead then. I think he thought, because I got rerouted, it's going to throw off the timing. He gets past the safety, doesn't see the ball in the air, doesn't think it's coming, throttles down a little bit. It's kind of like it's not acceptable. It's not okay. But it's also like when a baseball player hits a ground ball right to the second baseman. Those guys don't always sprint 100%, 100 miles an hour in case it's a bad throw or whatever. They might run it out, but they might not be, fully opened up. It was kind of like that for A.J. Brown. I think it's worse in football because you don't know if the ball's coming to you. Like you got to run it out full speed because if he doesn't slow down, it actually is probably a perfect pass for a touchdown.
Let's end with this, Ross. Short week, Eagles-Giants Thursday night. It feels like a spot for a get-right game for the Eagles, favored by 7.5. It's a division game, though, short week on the road. What do you think of the Giants, obviously now with a new quarterback in Jackson Dart in there?
Well, I'm not going to say must win, but obviously the Eagles have to win this game. We all recognize that. The Giants are not good. I've told you guys the last few weeks. I told you last week that I thought the Broncos were a lot better than people realized, and they were, and we saw that. The Giants are not good. They have a pretty good defensive front. I love Scadaboo, the way he plays, and obviously, Dart can make some plays with his legs, but they turn it over on 5 straight possessions against the Saints. I don't know that they'll do that against the Eagles, but this is a game where the Eagles are significantly better. Interestingly, though, Joe, because on Tuesdays I record the Even Money Betting podcast, the Eagles were favored by 7.5. The book I use, they're now favored by 7. So some money has come in on the Giants. So some significant money, I guess, to move it by 0.5 point has come in on the Giants. So there are some people that think, I guess at a minimum, that the Giants are going to be able to keep it close.
Yeah, I guess part of it, maybe the Eagles just not being able to pull away with their offense and how choppy it's been. But it should be a win for the Eagles. We shall see it on Thursday. Ross, we appreciate you hopping on. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up next Tuesday.
Sounds great. See you guys.
There he goes. Ross Tucker with us there.